and gentlemen, welcome to my today's live, where I am going to be talking about the latest immigration update in the United Kingdom. As we all know, on the 4th of July, there was a new update in the UK, new visa updates, new immigration updates. Everything is new here in UK, guys. So we know that we also have a new prime minister in the United Kingdom. And as we have a new prime minister in the United Kingdom, it simply means that there are going to be a lot of changes happening in the UK. And in today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you some of the changes which have taken place and some of the changes that you can expect to take place here within the United Kingdom. So I'll talk about both legal migration, illegal migration, working in the UK, being sponsored from overseas, care worker visa, student visa. There are a lot of changes in the United Kingdom, guys, and it's important that as we come to work here in UK, whether you are already in the UK or you are already overseas, you need to know what is happening here on the ground in UK, and that's what I'm going to be sharing with you. And as usual, I'm going to start by greeting you. Good evening, Shoni. Good evening, Elizabeth, Rofaro, Chinaka, Aston Villa. May you kindly share this video with individuals who are both in UK or also overseas who might be interested in knowing what is going on the ground here in the United Kingdom. So when the prime minister, as we all know, if we have a new prime minister, they all come up with their rules and regulations governing whatever, whether they are governing the care worker visa or they are governing the skilled worker visa or they are governing the asylum seekers and so forth and so on. They always come up with new changes. So I'm going to start by talking about the new changes with regards to the recruitment of skilled workers from overseas. They've already started, like the new prime minister puts in some rules. And in his new rules, he has already said he wants that if you are hiring from overseas, whatever company is hiring from overseas, if they're hiring from overseas, they have to make sure that they start by looking for individuals who are within the UK before they hire from overseas. Anyway, this is not something which is new. All the while, before you hire from overseas, you first search in the UK. And if you fail to find somebody within the United Kingdom, or if you fail to find people to employ within the UK, you are then now forced to hire from overseas. So when the prime minister came into place, they said they want to crack down. We all know that there's been abuse and so forth and so on for the health and care worker visa and other visa routes to the United Kingdom. So what has happened is one of the biggest companies which has been recruiting from overseas, let me mention the name. It's called, because I know I've dealt with a lot of people who have got visas, who are awaiting the COS and so forth with this very big company. And this very big company has actually hired a lot of people from overseas. So the statement actually says, this was posted in yesterday's newspaper. It says, more than 100 migrants and their families face being in Britain illegally after the company which sponsored them to come to work in the UK was stripped of its ability to endorse their visas. Right? So foreign employers or foreigners employed by care agents, Renaissance personnel in Brighton, have just weeks to find a new sponsor or return home before their legal right to be in the country runs out. So as you can see, guys, if you know someone who is employed by a Renaissance personnel agency, I know a lot of people who have gotten visa through this agency. It is one of the first agencies that has been caught in this crackdown. So if you look at their investigation, they found out that people were paying as high as £19,000 to relocate to the United Kingdom. Some were paying as high as £20,000. And as of yesterday, all these individuals who came in from overseas, whether you came in legally or you came in illegally, whether you paid or you didn't pay, because this very big company, which has hired a lot of people from overseas, has had their right to hire from overseas, or let me say, have had their license to sponsor from overseas revoked. It means that each and every individual, because you know that if you are coming under the health and care worker visa, whether you are a nurse, whether you are a carer, whether you are whatever, as long as you were sponsored by this company with effect from yesterday, you only have 60 days to look for an employer, and or else 60 days to look for an employer, or else if you don't find an employer, you have to pack your bags together with your family and leave the United Kingdom. So this is what is happening in UK, guys. The new prime minister has actually said they are going to be there's going to be a crackdown on all. They said there are 116,000 companies plus which are licensed to sponsor from overseas. So now what they want to make sure is if you're licensed to sponsor from overseas, you are following the new rules and regulations. Other than the CQC, blah, 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 that was talked about earlier on, they say if you are not following the rules and regulations that have been governed by the new prime minister, one, you are also going to pay a fine. It's not, because we know that those who are sponsoring from overseas, they have not been facing any penalties here in the UK. They have not been facing any penalties at all. What has been happening is they'll just simply revoke the license. And once they revoke the license, it's only those who are on the ground who are affected. It's only the carers. It's only the, the nurses and so forth who came under the health and care worker visa or skilled worker visa who are affected by this issue. And guys, as you come in, may you kindly like the video and also share the video. And during this live, in case you have any questions, as I speak whatever that I want to present to you today, be dropping questions. If you have any questions, I'll be picking up questions and answering them as we go along. So if you have any questions, just drop them here in the comment section and I'll make sure that I answer your questions. And before I proceed to talk about those who came in as asylum seekers, I don't know, this disaster that I'm going to talk about, I don't know why such disasters happen in first world countries, because I expect the first world countries to be the best in everything that they do, but they continue to do disaster after disaster after disaster. So before I talk about the next disaster, let me check if we've got one or two questions, then we move on to the next. Abdul says, hi Popo, how are you? I'm fantastic. I want to ask about non-clinical jobs. Can you please guide me? Which particular non-clinical jobs? Because I've seen maybe let me say fellow YouTubers who come and present to us that there are non-clinical jobs that you can get within the NHS. Specifically, we're looking at jobs like cleaning, that's a non-clinical jobs. We're looking at jobs like cleaning, we're looking at jobs like ambulance drivers and so forth and so on. And they say that, oh, these jobs have got visa sponsorship. Guys, me, I like being honest with you. It's very rarely that you'll find the United Kingdom sponsoring you from overseas to come and work as a carer, not a carer, to come and work as a cleaner within the NHS. It's very expensive to sponsor one individual from overseas. So most of the time, the jobs that are mostly available are those which are for skilled workers. That's why you see that a lot of people relocate to UK as skilled workers. Very rarely will you find someone telling you that I relocated from overseas to come and work as an ambulance driver for the NHS. So for non-clinical jobs, the chances of you getting a job under the non-clinical jobs are very, 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 very slim, because they rarely ever hire you from overseas. Besides, most of the non-clinical jobs they fall under band 2 within the NHS, and most NHS hospitals are now shunning hiring band 2 or band 3. They prefer to hire band 4 and band 5. So band 3 and below, where the non-clinical jobs usually fall under, they are not really keen on hiring from overseas. So if you really want to work in the NHS, your best chances of getting a job in the NHS are going for clinical jobs, because no one will hire a cleaner from overseas, even a driver or anything of that sort. You understand? But the healthcare sector, where you are going to be working as a skilled worker, they need skilled workers. You can apply to clinical jobs within the NHS. You've got high chances of getting a job there, unless of course you have jobs like which are jobs which maybe will pay you more than 38,700. Let's say you come and work as an engineer within the NHS. That's a non-clinical jobs. You can come and work maybe in IT. You come and work maybe as a data analyst or a data scientist. Those jobs which are high paying and pay you above that 8,700 per annum are the types of jobs that you can get within the NHS. But these ones which our fellow YouTubers are presenting, like the cleaning and the driving and the what, you will not get such a job. That's a fact. Right. And then I'll just answer two questions and I move on to the next topic that I want to talk about. Tebo says, hi, my queen. I have all documents and ready and proof of funds. Can I still continue to apply as a carer? Yes, you can still continue to apply as a carer because the visa routes are not yet closed. So now what the government of UK now wants to do, they are saying that for all those, maybe I'll read the statement. Just hold on. I look for the statement here. So according to the government of UK, I'm reading this from what they wrote. They said employment sectors like health and construction that have been reliant on migrants to fill skills gaps will be made to draw up workforce plans with another pledge to reform the points-based migration system. The aim, according to Labour, is to fire up skills training rather than look for overseas, right? So at the present moment, they are looking for people from overseas, but they are putting measures in place, like they've already said that they want to draw workforce plans, and these workforce plans are targeted at training people within the United Kingdom so that they fill in all those gaps, because according to the Labour, they say that the Tories were over-reliant on people who are overseas. So before all these companies draw up this workforce plan that they are talking about, they are still hiring from overseas and they're still offering visa sponsorship. And if you go on Google search or whatever, you still find companies hiring from overseas and offering what? Visa sponsorship. So if you have all your documents ready, the companies are hiring from overseas. So I'll still continue, since I've already touched on this topic, I'll still continue on what they're saying. They say one pledge is to ban employers and agencies that break employment law from hiring overseas workers. Then another is to stop workforce exploitation of foreign workers being used to undercut wages. So let me explain this too. Like I've already said earlier on, where I said that they want to make them pay fines. Two, if you are breaking the rules from hiring from overseas, instead of them continuing to allow you to hire from overseas, they are going to ban you from hiring from overseas, right? And then they say to stop workplace exploitation. We all know that overseas workers have been exploited. We know that overseas workers have been made to pay £19,000, have been made to pay £20,000, like those who are facing deportation or who have been told to look for other employers within the United Kingdom. All of them, the majority of them are saying they paid 19,000, they paid 20,000. Where people manage to get that amount of money, it beats me, because me in the United Kingdom, I cannot in any other day take £20,000 and pay for anything cash. So it's amazing how people manage to get £20,000. So they want to make sure that they stop that exploitation. And in case they find out that there is exploitation going on, or somebody says I paid whatever amount of money, they make sure that they intervene. The painful bit is that, because this one is a painful bit, the painful bit is that for everyone who is within the United Kingdom, because every company comes in with every party, like we now have the Labour Party, they come in with their rules. If they say they want to continue to crack down on all these companies, because they mentioned 116,000 companies hiring from overseas, if you paid to come to the UK, you cannot be settled and say, okay, I'm already in the UK, I'm settled. Just like these individuals, over 150 of them that have been told that the company has hit the ability to sponsor from overseas or the license to sponsor from overseas revoked. It simply means that because I know of this particular organization from 2 years ago, there are people who managed to get a visa through that company from 2 years ago. So which means even if you got a visa from 2 years ago, you need to be here in UK for 5 years. So you don't settle when you're here in the UK. It's like you are always holding your breath because you don't know what is going to happen to your company. In case they investigate your company and you did pay to come to the UK, the new government is not playing. They simply ban the company from hiring from overseas, and they simply revoke their license to sponsor, and they also simply make them pay a fine. So if you are in UK and you know that you paid to come to the United Kingdom, know that at any point in time, it can be a year later, it can be 2 years later, being here in UK, your company can have their license revoked because they are doing thorough investigation on migration, right? So they are doing that. So do not settle. You never know what is going to happen. That is the harsh reality on the ground. And then they say the government previously pledged to increase the threshold on salaries required for visas and pledged to scrap or cut price shortage labor from overseas by scrapping discounts on visa salary requirements for those in short-staffed sectors. Those employers looking to get on the shortage occupation list have to show they are also training domestic workers. As we all know, here in the United Kingdom, we have what is referred to as the shortage occupation list. So most of the jobs which offer visa sponsorship are on the shortage occupation list. So before any organization comes into the shortage occupation list, whether you are a nursing organization or it's for carers or it's for bricklayers or it's for engineers, it's for what? They need to show that they have got a workforce plan within the UK where they are training local staff within the United Kingdom before they even will search from overseas. So, and when it comes to that, guys, when it comes to skilled workers, we all know that a lot of people, even if there's a health and care worker visa, we also have what is referred to as skilled workers. And I'll just read to you or highlight to you what they've said with regards to skilled worker visa. 1. So, Labour do not intend to cap any immigration routes, but state they intend to link immigration and skills policy more closely. They aim to address shortages in construction, IT, and engineering by reforming the apprenticeship levy to skill and train resident workers. Right. They also intend, 1, require sponsors in key sectors along with adult care sponsors to adhere to government-determined workforce plan and fair pay agreement. As we all know, guys, there's this issue of where they're complaining about the underpaying of people who are from overseas. So they underpay them because, if someone's coming from overseas, if they say, I'm going to pay you £22,000, as opposed to someone here who's in the UK being paid £28,000, no one would mind. People don't mind being paid £22,000 as long as they come to the UK. So most of the companies have been taking advantage of people who are coming from overseas. So their salaries have been undercutting people who are within the United Kingdom. Now they want to do away with that, right? So that when you are employing from overseas, the salary is at par with an individual who is here within the United Kingdom, or with companies within the United Kingdom. And then remove occupations from the immigration salary list, which is the shortage occupation list, which means they are also going to review the shortage occupation list and check whether all the occupations that are within the shortage occupation list are really necessary, whether it's the carers, whether it's the nurses, whether it's the doctors, whether it's the engineers. They will reevaluate and look at it and see whether it is necessary to keep those occupations in the shortage occupation list, or they just scrap them and look at local talent. So anything can happen within the UK. And then the rest of the things like increased visa penalties for employers and so forth, I've already mentioned it. So this is the reality on the ground within the United Kingdom. One more question, then I move on to asylum seekers. Or people always correct me, they say asylum seekers. One more question, and then I move on to asylum seekers. Asylum seekers. Uh, Someone, let me see. Uh, Proposal is this, in this case, is NHS going to hire from overseas? I mean, Zim and need to come and work as a nurse, preferable Northern Ireland. So the thing is, when it comes to NHS, depending on which NHS you apply to, in Northern Ireland, we don't have NHS, we've got Health and Social Care, HSC, there's no NHS in Northern Ireland. In case you are overseas and you want to come and work within the NHS, there are certain NHS hospitals, quite a number of them, which have been told not to hire from Zimbabwe, not to hire from Nigeria, not to hire from Ghana, not to hire from Kenya, not to. So when it comes to being employed by the NHS right now, KISS goes by favor, because at times, if you apply and they look at location Zimbabwe, trash bin, location Nigeria, trash bin, location Ghana, trash bin. So that's why you discover that, unlike 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, where it was very easy to get a job as a nurse within the NHS, now to get a job within the NHS, as long as you are coming from a red list country, it becomes a mammoth task. They'll rather hire people from, I'm sure you have seen that a lot of those working the NHS, they'll see that a lot of Indians, they are hiring a lot of Indians because they're not in the what you call this, red list. So it's very unfortunate that if you're in the red list, you don't know which hospital you're applying to. Sometimes most of the hospitals, the majority of the NHS hospitals have been told not to hire because of, you are hiring from Zimbabwe, but we all know that in Zimbabwe there is critical shortage of nurses. There's critical shortage of carers. So they say they don't want for, what do they call this? They don't want to, like, you can't deprive another country of the healthcare workers or deprive another country of nurses to benefit your own nurses. I hope you do understand what I'm saying. So yes, you can apply to NHS, but when you are coming from a red list country, KISS goes by favor. You might not be hired from overseas because you are coming from a red list country, because they are really serious about this red list thing. And even the new Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, also talked about it, that it is not fair to be hiring from countries which actually need nurses. So most red list countries, they need nurses. They say it's not our fault that they're not paying you enough. If they need you, they need you. So for, what do you call that term? I forgot the term that they normally use. For ethical reasons. Yes. So for ethical reasons, they will not hire from red list countries. Not all NHSs, but the majority of the NHS hospitals have been told not to hire from red list countries. They can hire from non-red list countries, but those 47 countries, of which most of the African countries are in the red list, not all of them, but the majority of those who want to relocate to overseas are in the red list. And those countries which are not in the red list, like the South Africans and the Tswanas, very rarely do they want to leave their countries, because South Africa is different from Zimbabwe. The cost of living and everything and whatever in South Africa is far better than in Zimbabwe, or maybe it's far better than in Nigeria and so forth. So the majority of people who are in countries which are not in red list, they're not even bothering themselves about leaving their countries. But unfortunately, most of the countries which are in red list countries are the ones which are being poorly paid by their governments and so forth and so on. But nonetheless, they still can't come to the United Kingdom. And then, guys, we've got an issue of asylum seekers. Asylum seekers. You know what the government of UK did? And they've since apologized. You know that there are people who come, whether they came illegally or whatever, and they come here, they seek asylum. Maybe there is war in Zimbabwe or whosoever is after me. So the Home Offices are apologized to asylum seekers granted leave to remain in the UK, who then had their decisions retracted. What the UK Home Office has done is, to asylum seekers who've been applying for leave to remain in the UK, for applying to be granted asylum within the UK, some waiting for decisions for 18 months, some waiting for decision for 1 year. The majority were sent BRPs. You know, a BRP is a biometric residence permit, which is more like an ID or an ID that you use here in UK, which actually indicates your right to remain within the United Kingdom. So the majority of the asylum seekers within the UK were actually sent biometric residence permits. Here is a BRP. You now have the right to remain in the UK for the next 5 years, or you now have indefinite leave to remain in the UK. Then you know, some people, once they get their indefinite leave to remain, they celebrate, they tell their families, they even throw parties that, oh, finally, after suffering, I've been granted an indefinite leave to remain. Then the UK Home Office went ahead to send letters to say, we apologize. Who does that? We apologize. It was a mistake that we granted you leave to remain. Can you cut that BRP and return it to whatever office in England there? You no longer have the right to remain in the UK, and we are sorry. Do you think that is fair, guys? And if it is not fair, how can a first world country do that? Because listen to this. Someone says, in one case, an asylum seeker was jubilant after receiving a letter from Home Office officials stating, your claim for asylum has been successful and you have been granted refugee status and 5 years permission to remain in the UK. And then says, I was so happy to receive this letter, the asylum seeker said, and I and my family had been left in limbo for 2 years. Imagine, we were left in limbo for 2 years, and then they send you this thing that, oh, finally you've been granted. Then you celebrate, because after waiting for 2 years, guys, you deserve to celebrate if they tell you that you've been granted refugee status or whatever. They turn around and say, we are sorry. And that is not one family, that is not two, thousands of people. Because the UK Home Office made a mistake. And I always ask myself, how can a first world country make such a grave mistake? Because imagine if you are that individual, they grant you permission to remain, then all of a sudden you are no longer granted permission to remain. Then there are people who are living in, there are some asylum seekers who live in hotels and so forth. One woman says, they came to me and said, you have to vacate the premises because you've been granted leave to remain. She vacated the premises, and then 2 weeks later they tell her, oh, it was a mistake. Can you send back that BRP? Can you imagine a situation like that, guys? So this is exactly what is happening within the United Kingdom. And if you paid attention to today's speech, because the king of the United Kingdom, Charles, they actually had mentioned a speech today, and they talked of migration. Ever since Keir Starmer came into power, more than 1,000 people have migrated illegally into the United Kingdom. And people have been complaining that, okay, they stopped this whole deportation plan and they lost over like 300 million almost. They lost all that money because Rwanda said, we are not paying you back any money. And from that 300 million that they sent, to Rwanda, only 4 people voluntarily went to Rwanda there, and they're going to be taking care of those people and so forth. And now people are continuing to cross the channel. Despite measures saying, oh, we're going to put in measures. The king did mention anyway today that they are going to make border securities and so forth and so on, so that they prevent the illegal migration into the United Kingdom. So this is what is happening on the ground, guys. Do you have any more questions before I move on? Let me see how long, because I don't want the live to be long. Let me see how long I've been speaking, because I talk too much. I still have the issue of students. Another disaster which has struck UK is the issue of students and the issue of care workers as well. There's another disaster which has struck UK. Let me see. Someone says, Popo, as an ambassador for MMA, do you know what's happening with the certificate of sponsorship? Yes, as an ambassador for MMA, I do know what is happening with the certificate of sponsorship, because I did raise it in a few weeks ago. We had normally have meetings as ambassadors for MMA. If you don't know, MMA is a healthcare recruitment, and I'm the ambassador for the healthcare recruitment, which means I help MMA with the recruitment of people from overseas, which means if you want to relocate to overseas, I can link you up with MMA and they can help you to relocate from overseas. So I asked them, why is it that they are still not issuing the certificate of sponsorship? And they said they've got a backlog. They've had a backlog of the COS because because MMA is a big recruitment agency. It's not a small recruitment agency. It's one of the biggest recruitment agencies here in UK, such that at a particular point in time, they can be having 300 people applying, some coming as nurses, some coming as carers. 300, they have large numbers of people. So like a majority of people, they got interviews, they did interviews and they got jobs here and they applied for the certificate of sponsorship, right? So when they applied for the certificate of sponsorship, because of the backlog which has been happening within the Home Office, the COS were not being issued. But for the past 4 weeks, they've started issuing the COS for people, because I know some individuals, they got their COS 2 weeks ago and they've already landed in UK. We've got some who came in Northern Ireland last week after being issued the COS after waiting for 8 months. These individuals, they waited for 8 months. So after the elections, it's like they've been releasing COS one after the other, one after the other. So if you've been waiting for your COS, there's a likelihood that anytime soon you'll be receiving your decision, because they are now clearing the backlog. You know that everything has standstill. And then now, after these elections and so forth, people have started receiving their certificate of sponsorship. So that is what is happening on the ground. And with MMA healthcare recruitment, they've since stopped for now recruiting carers from overseas. It's at a standstill because there are some carers who are waiting for the certificate of sponsorship. And in addition to that, because of all these scandals that have been going on in companies, most companies are saying, can you just hold on? Let us stop recruiting carers for now until all this fracas that has been going on clears. So if you're awaiting your COS anytime soon, your COS can be coming, because the Home Office has started issuing COS one at a time. But because of the backlog, it might take a longer period of time, because they have to clear the backlog first. And guys, you can see what is happening within the Home Office, the mistakes that they are doing within the Home Office. Last month alone, I did share with you that Home Office mixed up some documents. You see, now Asylum seekers are being granted leave. Then a week later, they say, no, it was a mistake. Last month, it was another issue of things being mixed up within the Home Office. I received a PRP written Pauline Popo with the details are different from mine. I was born in 2011, yet I was born in 1985 and things like that. So a lot has been going on within the Home Office, and there's a lot that they are fixing behind. They will not come to us and tell us that we've got this problem, but they've highlighted problems like the merging of documents, the merging of names and so forth, which they have to deal with before they issue all the COS and so forth, because there's a likelihood that you might be issued with something with documents which are not even yours. So there's a lot going on in the Home Office which they're currently fixing. That's why they are just issuing visas one at a time. I hope you do understand when it comes to the issue of the COS. Let me see if there's another question. Is there any chance of getting a job? Yes, there is a chance of getting a job, as long as it is under the shortage occupation list. You can still get a job as long as it is under the shortage occupation list, as long as they've indicated that they're hiring from overseas and they're offering visa sponsorship. You can get a job. Do you get me, guys? And then the UK has already started crying. UK universities have already started crying. UK hospitals have already started crying. UK care homes have already started crying, because there's been a serious decline in the number of people who are applying for jobs from overseas. There has been a serious decline in the number of students who are applying to come and study in the United Kingdom. And that serious decline means that most of the universities, because they depend on they depend on cash which comes from people who are overseas, they are crying that they are no longer able to, to function. I remember in one life I mentioned that, can you imagine the amount of money that they are losing? If they are losing, let's say they are losing, because each student who come and pay maybe £16,000 per year, which is a lot of money, right? Even if it's £10,000 per year, it's a lot of money, because you say £10,000 per individual times 50,000 people. Now they say in the universities they are literally begging people from overseas. They're literally looking for people from overseas, because for masters it has fallen by 55%. 55% is a massive number, guys. And then for graduates, those who want to come and do degrees, it has fallen by 27%. So you see that if there's such a fall, UK is complaining. They are actually asking you. They say UK universities face financial turmoil as figures from Home Office show plunging numbers of international students applying for courses starting in the next academic year. Applications for sponsored visas has fallen. These are for general visas by 28%, suggesting the visa restrictions applied by the previous government continue to hamper recruitment. Right. And then for the master's degree, it's 55%. More student visa applications are received over the summer, leaving many universities hoping that things will improve by September. So you can see, guys, disaster has struck UK. You see, it is a disaster because if you are having a minimal number of people coming here, minimum number of students coming here, it means that they're facing financial turmoil. They're complaining. Not only that, if you look at the health and care worker visa as well, they say the number of people in the health and care worker visa, the dependents and so forth, they've also plummeted. The care homes are complaining that they are no longer getting people from overseas. Care homes in Scotland are complaining that we need people from overseas. We are highly dependent on people from overseas, but because of the new rules, we are not getting people from overseas. Why? Because most of the people say, if I cannot go with my family to UK, then what's the point of me going to UK? If I'm to go and study in UK, because the Migration Advisory Committee, after doing their investigations for for the students, they found out that most of the students, they come here to UK because there is a post-study work visa and because they are able to bring in their dependents. So now that they are not able to bring in their dependents and it's very difficult for them, they'll rather go and study in America, they go and study in Australia, they go and study, and then the government of UK is greatly affected. However, when the new government, for the students, they didn't mention whether they're going to review this or not. But for the care workers, the new government said they're not going to go back on the new. I don't know whether they're going to evaluate it or not. But for now, they said the rules that were put in place, that dependents from overseas should not bring in carers should not bring in dependents from overseas. They said they're not going to change that. Regardless of them experiencing a critical shortage of staff, they're not going to change that. For students, they've not mentioned whether they're going to evaluate that, because if you look, a few days ago, the Migration Advisory Committee, they came up with a report. The Migration Advisory Committee is the one which actually looks at all the visa routes and so forth, and then they tell the government whether the visa route benefits the government or it does not benefit the government. They do all that. So they've come up with a report and told the government that, okay, people are affected because of this way, that way. And then they have to evaluate whatever came from the Migration Advisory Committee. And then they advise the government whether they should reverse or what. So for students, the difference between students and carers is that students, they bring in revenue to the United Kingdom. As they come to study in the United Kingdom, each student maybe is going to contribute at the end of 4 years, would have contributed, whether it's £20,000 or it's £30,000, right? Whereas if someone is coming in as a dependent, instead of them contributing to the UK's economy, they are going to be milking the UK's economy, milking it. How if it's children, they're going to be going to school for free, they're going to be receiving going to the hospital for free, having free school meals. It's not for everyone anyway. Free school meals are for there's a certain age group, free school meals and so forth and so on, which means they're going to be what, using the government funds for free school, free everything. Whereas students, when they come in, they pay thousands and thousands of pounds, which have been helping the universities in the United Kingdom. So this is the disaster which has struck UK. They are complaining. So I don't know whether this complaining is going to bring about a change, because the healthcare system, the healthcare sector is suffering tremendously. If you go to the hospitals, at least the hospitals are hiring carers from overseas, and they're hiring nurses from overseas. But if you go to the hospitals, there's critical shortage, right? And they indicated that they're going to increase more our appointments by 40% and so forth, meaning that even if they increase their appointments, then they see 40,000 per week, the shortage is going to be even higher, because we need more nurses, we need more carers and so forth and so on to look at those people. Because if you go to hospital, the ECGs and whatever, they're being done by carers. And if we don't recruit from overseas, if they don't recruit from overseas, the UK workforce, the honest truth is, the reason why the UK is hiring from overseas is because the local people, they don't want to work as nurses. The local people, they don't want to go and train for nursing. The local people don't want to work as carers and stuff like that. The local people, they enjoy receiving the benefits from the government. So in my opinion, if you want to force people to work, remove the benefits. Maybe if you remove the benefits, then they can attempt to go and work, because they're not going to be receiving any single cent from the government. But as long as the government is sponsoring them and still giving them money, there is childcare what money, there's what money. I was talking to one individual that I was talking to with 4 children. She gets up to £2,000 per month from the government. And you discover that some nurses don't earn that, some carers don't earn that. So would you rather go and work as a carer and get paid 1,400, or sit at home and receive government funds of £2,000 per month? You see, so people would not opt to go for training. They will opt to get free money. So if you're not giving them free money, then it will force them. But as long as, this is my opinion, I don't know what your opinion is, but as long as the government is still saying, oh, you're not working, I'm going to give you £500, I will not go to work. Even me personally, if someone pays me when I'm seated at home, I will not go to work. So if it's a situation whereby they say, oh, you are a single mother, because if you're a single mother, the government takes care of you here in the UK. That's why some people, they prefer to have their partner staying there and dub themselves as single mothers. That's why they don't want to get married, because once you get married, you remove those benefits that you get, blah, 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 blah. So if I'm able to go to the government and say, I'm a single mother, I've got 2 children, I can't take care of my children, blah, 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 I get funds from the government. My children, they get school uniforms, funds for school uniforms. They get free meals at school. I get paid child benefits. I also get paid whatever single parenthood benefits or whatever. Do you think if you come to me and say, I'm going to train you to become a carer, I'll go and train to become a carer? When you are paying me 2,000 at the end of the month, or you're paying me on a weekly basis, or in addition to paying 2,000 at the end of the month, you put me in a council house. And in that council house, I'm only expected to pay rent of maybe just 200 per month. Then I know that from the 2,000 that you give me, I only pay the rent for 200 per month. Will I bother myself going to, if they say workforce plan, come, we train you? Do you think I'm going to go and train so that I go to work? In addition to go to work, I get paid less than what the government pays me. Do you think people will go and, I don't know. So in my opinion, the shortage of carers, the shortage of nurses, the shortage of skilled workers is going to continue as long as there are government funds. Period. So I'm going to see, guys, whether you've got any questions, and I answer your questions so that I don't make this live very long. Let me see whether I've covered what I wanted to talk about today. And I'll check if you have any questions. If you have questions, please kindly drop them in the comment section, and then I'll answer your questions, and then I'll round off this live. And as you are throwing in your questions, guys, may you kindly like this video, and may you kindly share this video. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, do subscribe to my channel and turn on the notification bell so that you never miss any of my videos, as I constantly come with updates on what is happening here in the UK. And I'm also going to be coming with updates on other countries which are hiring from overseas and are offering visa sponsorship, because it's not only UK which is hiring from overseas and offering visa sponsorship. So I'm going to check your questions here. Someone, Nagasi, please answer my question. Let me go back and see. I think I've answered these questions. I am having dependent visa and having 7 years of IT experience. If you are on a dependent visa and you've got 7 years of IT experience, my dear, IT is the future. Whether it's UK, whether it's Luxembourg, whether it's Australia, whether it's what, IT is the future. I'm sure if you are as old as me, because I'm very old, I'm 39 years old, guys, very old. If you are as old as me, you know that 20 years ago, there was nothing like a YouTube. We are doing YouTube videos. There was nothing like the internet. There was nothing like TikTok. There was nothing like jobs there's nothing like nomadic visas where people work from home, and there's nothing like working from home. But if you look at as the years progress, like if you're looking from last year, from 5 years, 3 years back, 4 years back, 5 years back, people are working in IT. People are working from home. IT is the future. Even when I spoke to my son who wants to because I've got an 18-year-old son who recently finished A-levels. So when he started A-levels, I was like, I said, this is the mother. You know how mothers are like, why don't you venture into medicine, blah, blah, blah. You only did the sciences associated with medicine for just 2 weeks. And I was like, no, this is not it, mother. IT is the future. So he moved from medicine, like the biology and what, and said, I'd rather do IT, engineering, and mathematics, because IT is the future. So if we have experience in IT, jobs, you don't look for jobs. Jobs look for you in the United Kingdom. So, and if you're on a dependent visa, because there are people who say, I'm on a dependent visa, I need to get my own visa, blah, blah, blah. No, you don't. I need to get my own sponsorship. If you are getting your own sponsorship, you are limiting yourself, because if you are limiting yourself, they are going to restrict you. You cannot do extra shifts more than 20 hours and stuff like that. So if you've got IT, do yourself a favor, go to Google search, whether it's Indeed.com, whether it's there are so many companies where you just go on Google and search IT jobs UK. You will find hundreds of thousands of jobs within the UK. Simply as that. Britain, we have everyone, but the British want to be, I'll swap my spot for a way out. Britain, we have everyone, but the British want to be, I don't know what that means. I'll swap spot for a way out. I don't know. You want to swap your spot for a way out of Britain? Me, I normally say, you know that we complain that, UK is banning us. UK things are expensive. UK, but I always say, come and experience it yourself. Do not hear it from me to say, UK is what? People, come and experience it yourself. And when you're experiencing it yourself, you come and gain your UK experience. If you feel, because there are people who feel like the nurses who said, no, UK is not for me, I'm going to America. UK is not for me, I'm going to New Zealand. UK is not for me, I'm going to Australia. But they would have come to UK and tested the UK and see what the waters are like. Are they deep? Am I going to drown or whatever? So if UK is not good for me, it might not be good for me, But it does not necessarily mean that is not going to be good for Susan and for John and for whatever. You understand? So let people come to UK and experience it for themselves. And when they've experienced it for themselves and say, oh, it's burning me, let me go to where? Let me go to Australia. There are people who are making it in the UK. It depends on how you want to use your finances. It depends on where you choose to go and live and work. If I compare you to someone who is actually in England, let's say you go to England and someone comes here to Northern Ireland, obviously someone who is in England is going to struggle in terms of paying the bills, in terms of paying rent, in terms of compared to someone who is in Northern Ireland. Today, earlier on, I went for lunch with my friend. She was in Scotland just a few days ago. And she was like, my dear, Scotland is expensive. If you look at this is £2 more. Fuel is £1 more. This is £1 more. This is £3 more. So if you want to come to UK, do come to the United Kingdom, but look at where you are securing a job. Do you want to secure a job in England where you're going to be crying every day that you are simply living for bills? Or would you want to come and try Northern Ireland? Because I always tell you that for a 3-bedroom house, you pay less than £700. 3 bedrooms, less than £700. You don't pay council tax. Whereas in England, for a 3-bedroom house, you are going to pay £1,800. In addition to the £1,800, you also pay council tax. You also pay for, water bills that we don't pay for in Northern Ireland. So you just look at where am I going to survive? I think I'll survive better if I come to Northern Ireland. I think I'll be able to save a few cents if I'm in Northern Ireland. Or I'm not going to cry much when I'm in Northern Ireland. There are people who said, okay, it's fine. I'll get a job in England. It's okay. But once I'm in England, I'll relocate to Northern Ireland. And there are thousands of people who have relocated to Northern Ireland because of these very videos that we come and share with you and say, guys, avoid England. Come to Northern Ireland. I've nothing against England. If you go to England, the place is beautiful. That's why it is expensive. There are so many activities. There is life in Britain. There is life in England. There is life in, London and stuff like that. Northern Ireland, there is no life. We live in the rural areas of the United Kingdom, right? And as much as we live in the rural areas of the United Kingdom, cost of living is far better than everywhere else in the United Kingdom. Cost of living is better in Northern Ireland. So someone in Britain might be burning, but here in Northern Ireland, you don't burn as much as someone in Britain. Understand, guys? By the way, Northern Ireland is not counted. It's not counted under Britain, in case you didn't know. Is there any advantage of applying from South Africa? I'm using ZEP permit, but I am a Zimbabwean. As long as you are in South Africa legally, I always say it's an added advantage. If you go to South Africa legally, or if you have, I put in quote because there are people with documents for Zimbabwe, there are people with documents for Nigeria, and they also have, miraculously, they also have documents for South Africa in quotes. So if you miraculously have documents for South Africa, do your everything, whether it's your care course, whether it's a what, do everything using your South African documents, and you relocate to UK using your South African documents. Why? Because people, they prefer hiring people from South Africa. If you look at care workers who relocated, even if they are Zimbabwean, even if they are what, those who were able to come to UK, the majority of them, they're coming from South Africa and stuff like that, because they consider South Africa. There are companies which specifically indicate that they want people from South Africa. South Africa is not under the red list countries. So even if you apply to NHS, even if you apply to where, as long as you're applying from South Africa, they're not going to raise eyebrows to say this is a red list country. They prefer you better than someone in Zimbabwe. So it's an advantage if you are there legally, apply from South Africa, because it's about geographic location, not nationality. Vuhlenjovo says, Vakuma, be patient. You can see she's still explaining Yes, I understand, because he was now saying, answer my question, answer my question. It's difficult to answer all questions, and I'm not going to be able to answer all questions here. But after my life, I always make sure that I go back and I answer questions for those who have questions. Nathaniel says, if one is already in the UK and wishing to switch to NHS, is it possible? If we'll be originally from a red list country, it's pretty much possible, because once you are in the United Kingdom, like just like I've already mentioned, being from a red list country, it's all about geographic location, meaning you can be a Nigerian and you are in South Africa, or you are in UAE. If you are in South Africa legally, you are in UAE, or you are in Botswana legally, it doesn't matter. The red list issue does not affect you. They can hire you from wherever. So if you are in UK, even if you came from a red list country, we are no longer considering you as a red list individual. We are considering you as someone who's legally in the United Kingdom, and NHS will hire you, and it will hire you very fast, faster than anyone who's whatever, who is overseas. But if you want to go and work in the NHS, you better start doing some courses here in the UK, courses like NVQ2, NVQ3, and so forth, because NHS normally prefers people with NVQ. Why? Because even if they're offering you visa sponsorship, they prefer offering visa sponsorship to people who are, for example, Band 4. And if we're looking at Band 4, the difference between Band 4 and Band 3 is that Band 4, the advanced things that you do, things like venipuncture, where you're going to be collecting blood from patients, things like a ECG, things like a catheterization, things like. So if you are here and you're on sponsorship and you want to go and work in the NHS, if you're not going to do NVQ, blah, 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 go and do short courses in things like venipuncture, how to do an ECG, blah, blah, blah. Then you can apply, then they can hire you and offer you a sponsorship. Because another thing which is making NHS not hire from overseas anymore, especially when it comes to carers, Band 3, 2 and below, is because of the salary threshold. The previous government, they increased the salary threshold for everything. So now what the NHS can actually offer you is below the salary threshold for health and care worker visa. That's why they are no longer hiring as much as they're hiring from overseas. So even if you are overseas and you want to apply to the NHS, basic nurse aid training will not land you a job in the NHS. Basic St. John's training, even if you've got experience, it will not land you in the NHS, because in the NHS, they want people who can do venipuncture, they want people. So you are better off doing courses like NVQ2, NVQ3, and so forth and so on. And you know that if you come and work in the NHS, because the shortage occupation list code differs for some care workers, some care workers are able to bring in their dependents from overseas, depending on the shortage occupation list code that you are using within the NHS. Please, as a student, can I get NHS job to work for the 20 hours? You can get an NHS job to work for the 20 hours as long as you have qualifications, relevant experience, and so forth. So it would be difficult if you don't have, because others, they are starting here, whatever, they prefer to do their NVQ, they prefer to do short courses on venipuncture, because sometimes if you're coming, for example, you're an engineering student, you go and work in the NHS there, it doesn't benefit NHS staff if you say you go there and say, oh, I cannot do venipuncture, or I cannot do an ECG, or I cannot do that. So if you cannot do all those things, you're better off going to work in a care home. Most of the care homes, if you're here in UK, they don't care about experience, because it's going to be on the job training. They don't need you to have, with zero experience. If you're a student, you can go and work in a care home. Even if you have never seen a pet in your life, if you have never seen a patient in your life, you have never bathed the patient or anything, you can get a job and they're going to train you on the job. So the difference between NHS and care homes is that when it comes to care homes, you're dealing with activities of daily living, assisting with mobility, feeding, bathing of patients, repositioning and stuff like that, which is less complex compared to someone who's a Band 4 in the NHS. So if you are a student, you are better off looking for a job where in care homes, the salary is not very much different. It can be a difference of 10p, 20p, or 30p. So just look for jobs within care homes, preferable. Finland and Luxembourg are the cash these days, and I will not say no because that is a fact. Finland and Luxembourg are hiring left, right, and center. The problem is with us guys is that we hear something, for example, come and say, "Oh, Luxembourg is hiring." Very few people, they show interest. Then after you have done that video, say Finland is hiring or Luxembourg is hiring, people relax, but Nigerians don't relax. I always say that people relax. Have you tried Luxembourg? No, I haven't tried. But if you talk to most of Nigerians, the number of people that I know with money, the majority, not even the number, the majority of people who manage to relocate to Luxembourg, who manage to relocate to Germany, who manage to relocate to Finland as carers, are all from Nigeria. I've got Nigeria and Kenya and Namibia. Those, I don't know any other person, maybe from Ghana or from Zimbabwe, from South Africa. Just these three countries, I know that because I talk to everyone from all over. Nigeria, Namibia, and Kenya have managed to relocate to Luxembourg, Germany, Finland, and so forth and so on. Because when they hear information that Luxembourg is hiring, they don't rest. As we hear, "Oh, Luxembourg is hiring. What are the requirements? They need French. I'm not going to do it," but people are doing it. You remember last week I came with a nurse. I did a live with a nurse who was working in Germany. Was she able to speak Germany before she started working as a nurse in Germany? No. She went and did her B1 Germany and eventually a B2 Germany and so forth, and became a nurse in Germany, and she's living the life in Germany. So if others can do it, so can you do it. So it's not like, "Oh, Nigerians can do it, I can't do it." If Nigerians can do it, you a Zimbabwean, you a South African, you a Tswana, you a Ghanaian, whatever nationality you are, if other nationalities are able to do it, what can stop you from doing it? If another nationality where they speak Zulu, they speak whatever, they are able to go and learn Finnish, they're able to go and learn Germany, they're able to go and learn French. If other nationalities can do it, so can you do it. Because if they're not being, unless you're allowing yourself to be defeated by a simple thing like a language, you can't allow yourself to be defeated by a simple thing like a language. I know that even myself, when I was in school, I was able to learn French and pass French and so forth and so on because I had that willingness to learn. So if you have that willingness to learn, give yourself, remember that nurse Snow who came and spoke here, she said it only took less than 6 months to learn the German language and be able to read and write. And I was watching one of her videos where she was working in German. She said, if you look at the things, it looks like English. I'm not German speaking, but from what was written in the notes that she was using in hospital for the admission of a patient who was pregnant or whatever, I could read the words. They were written in German, but I could translate them to English because they look like English words, which means it's not very difficult. So if you want to work in any other country which is non-English speaking, others are doing it. It's not like you're not capable. You are also capable of doing it. If others can do it, so can you. Hard work and determination is what gets a man or a woman what he or she wants. Hard work and determination. Popo, did they mention on how to tackle the shortage of carers, like giving asylum seekers right to work and also pay tax than being a liability? That avenue, they wanted to explore it, but then they ended up saying, no, it's, if you look at asylum seekers or asylum seekers, as I like to call them, it's only in the Republic of Ireland where they've allowed them to work. And in my opinion, in my humble opinion, just like you, instead of asylum seekers becoming a liability to the government, because if you're an asylum seeker, if you're not working, you are going to be depending on government funds. You are going to go to a government house. Some are being housed in hotels. You're going to go to a government house. You're going to be, receiving funds from the government and so forth. Whereas if they allow asylum seekers to go and work as carers and so forth, which means they're going to be able to take care of themselves while they're working within the United Kingdom. Personally, I don't see a reason why an asylum seeker should not work if they're able to train and work and so forth and so on. That is my personal opinion. And personally, I think if they are to grant asylum seekers the ability to work, just like they did in the Republic of Ireland, it will cause less burden on the government, because as it is, earlier on I just read where they said asylum seekers cost the United Kingdom $7 billion. Is $7 billion a joke? 7 billion is not a joke. And people will continue to cross the borders and come to UK because they know that if I come here, whether it's illegal or whatever, eventually if I am granted refugee status, the government is going to be taking care of me, food, everything. In my humble opinion, if they allow them to work, it means less strain on the government, less strain on the UK resources. 7 billion is not a joke. 7 billion is a lot of money. My brother-in-law is a nurse having 22 years of experience. Will he be able to get an opportunity in UK? Oh, that goes without saying, as long as he has what you call this, the other requirements, IELTS band score of 7 and pass the CPT test. As long as he's got 6 months to 1 year experience, you can get a job within the UK because that's the minimum requirement. I don't think the citizens can manage the long hours that carers are working every day. Well, I might sound fun, but I think I agree with you. Because why I agree with you is because I've spoken to them. I've asked them. Some come temporarily as carers and they say just to test, have a feel of it and say, oh, no, I don't want. I remember the other day I did a live, I was in uniform, I was going to work. And when I said to you guys, I can guarantee you that if I go to work today, it will be only us from overseas. And when I went to work that particular day, night shift has got 8. Where I work, it's 8 people, which means it's 4 units, 8 people, two per unit. And when I went there, 6 of us were from Zimbabwe and the other 2 were from Nigeria. You see, we did not have anyone because they say, I cannot afford to work night shift. Night was meant for us to sleep. I don't want to be working night shift. Who is going to be with my husband while I'm working night shift? Who's going to be with my children while I'm working night shift? These are ungodly hours. I can't be working in ungodly hours. So I know majority of the time I go night shift, it's us from overseas who are working night shift because they don't want to work. They call them ungodly hours. They don't want to work the ungodly hours. It's too long for them. The night was meant for sleep. And come holiday time, like this time, it's summer in UK. Most of them is sick after sick because it's holiday time. Whereas people from overseas, you will not see sick after sick because they came here with a purpose to work. You understand? Popo, what about data analysis? Anything to do with computer, anything to do with data, anything to do with IT, anything to do with engineering. It is the in thing. It is the future. Even if you've got your children, your children are growing up and so forth, and they want to, when as you are growing up, you want to know career-wise. Tell your children that career-wise, whether it's A-level, whatever, they should run away from UK work, nursing, blah, 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 because that is not the future. The future is in IT. The future is in data analysis, engineering, things to do with technology, because we're moving towards technology. Each and every year, you see that each and every year we're advancing technology-wise. Each and every year. So if you want data analysis and so forth and so on, and even a couple of days ago, I did do a video where I mentioned to you that there's this individual who, there are smart approaches, they're actually training here for, it's all to do with data analysis, all to do with, business analysis and things like that, because that is where the future is. And the beauty about data analysis, whatever analysis, you can work from anywhere in the world. The work-life balance is what I love the most about that. My younger brother is a data scientist, right? He works from home. Goes and takes his children from school, and does all that. He's at home around the clock. He's just working on the computer. And him working on the computer, they're sending him data. He's analyzing data, statistics, and so forth for the bank that he works for. He works for a bank, but he works at home. Tesco Bank, but he works at home. and he's getting good monies while he's seated at home there on his computer. So that is where the future is. And if you want work-life balance, that's what saved him, because my younger brother has got a 3-year-old son and also a 10-year-old daughter. He takes them to school, picks them from school, in between there, prepares them food and so forth. He's in the house while the wife is working. You see, so IT is the future. Data analysis, even your children, tell them to run out, because back in the days they would say, oh, go and work as a doctor, blah blah blah. No, don't tell your children to go and work as doctors, because data scientists are making more than doctors. And being a data scientist, data analysis, IT, it's less stress compared to the hospital. It's less stress compared to nursing. We are going to be talking of safeguarding issues every day. We are going to be walking on eggshells, where they are going to be threatening you if they are going to report you to NMC, where when you knock off at work and knock off after work and you go home, you're asking yourself, am I going to receive an email? Because every little thing, it has to be, you have to be receiving, oh, did you do this? Did you do that? It's stressful. I'm working as a nurse here in the United Kingdom, and working as a healthcare provider, whether a healthcare assistant or whether you're a nurse, working as a healthcare provider, as a nurse, as long as you are black like me, it is very difficult, because us, especially the blacks, they don't see us. We are at the bottom of the food chain. If I commit a crime today, the way they will handle the crime that I commit compared to my white-skinned colleague is going to be different. You understand? So run away from these stressful jobs. My father always tells me every day, Pauline, can you run away from these stressful jobs? Because I'll come and say, would you believe at work they did this? Would you believe at work they did that? Would you believe there are situations whereby a white individual, whenever a white individual speaks, it holds more water as opposed to a black individual, which means as a black individual, you have to be constantly fighting your battles. And if you're not able to fight, they're going to step on you and they'll make sure that you lose your job. Sometimes you lose your job over things that you did not do. So run away from these stressful industries. Not that I'm saying there's anything bad about nursing, but the stress is overwhelming. Being black is overwhelming if you are working in the healthcare sector. And I'm yet to do a video just to complain about it, because I like complaining. I'll do a video and complain about how we are treated as the BEM here in the United Kingdom. I don't like it at all. Understand? We are abused too much, and it's annoying. I'm a care worker on Tier 2 visa, and my company sponsor gets revoked. I have qualifications in IT. Can I then look for IT job with sponsorship instead of care job? Yes, you can. If you are under any form of visa sponsorship, if you want to switch from care worker visa to another skilled worker visa, be it data scientist, be it whatever, as long as that job is under visa sponsorship, you can switch from that sponsorship and go and work for another company. You can be interviewed and everything and get another job within another company. There is an individual here who was, some people, they come to UK as engineers, blah, blah, blah. The individual was working as a carer, but was an engineer, qualified engineer here in Northern Ireland, because I spoke, that individual actually had a one-to-one session. Remember, I do one-to-one sessions with people. So even today, I had a one-to-one session with someone who's an engineer. Before this life, I had a one-to-one session with someone who's an engineer. So I had a one-to-one session with this carer who had come here to UK as an engineer and had been doing these courses, blah, 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 just to boost their CV and so forth. And then the license got revoked. So she was asking me, it was a she was asking me, can I then apply to this company? This company has actually said they can offer visa sponsorship and so forth. Because when she was now on the ground here, that's when she was able to go and search for companies, can you hire me from overseas? Can you offer me visa sponsorship? And she is working here in Northern Ireland. She switched from care to engineering. So you can switch from from whatever care to any other field, as long as they are offering visa sponsorship for people who are overseas or within the United Kingdom. So guys, I'm about to round off this live. So if you've got a few questions, throw the questions and I'll just answer them before I round this live. The This one says, okay, I'll translate it to English anyway. It says, Konai, Popo, how about my switch? We have been applying to no avail. A lot of people, this statement says how far with switching jobs from one employer to the other. For example, I'm a carer and maybe the company has the sponsor license revoked, like those that I spoke of earlier on. We have been told that that company that I mentioned earlier on, I forget the Renaissance, whatever, I forget the name. Why is it difficult to get a sponsor a switch? It's difficult to get a switch because the majority of the people here in UK now know of the scandals which have been taking place within the UK, and they tend to shun people who are associated with those scandals because they know that if the company has had the sponsor license revoked, the likelihood is that they're not adhering to what, and you as an individual, you are also that black sheep who may be paid and so forth and so on. And then they say they do not want people to switch in stuff like that. They are not keen on hiring people who want to switch, for starters. Because if you go and join that company, obviously that company is also going to be scrutinized and stuff like that. But in terms of switching, the Scotland has got so many switches. They are looking for people from overseas. So if you want to switch, do not look at England, which is oversaturated, because you know a lot of care workers, when they're located, they all relocated to England, the majority of them. There are places like Scotland. Scotland has got a number of vacancies. So if you want to switch, instead of looking at places like England, search for Scotland care worker jobs with visa sponsorship in Scotland. Specifically type that on Indeed in Scotland or on Google in Scotland. Then you can see companies which can permit you to switch within Scotland. Because of all the places in the UK, Scotland is the one who still has a lot of vacancies for carers who are overseas and so forth and so on. So if you want to switch, try Scotland. England is overpopulated. It's difficult to switch within England. So guys, I'm now checking last few questions before I round this live. I round off this live. Okay, I've already answered this one. If you have any questions, just drop them down below, then I'll answer them, guys. Otherwise, I am very thankful that you managed to come and join me in this live. Thank you so much. And kindly share this video with those who are interested in relocating to overseas. So Bimbe Bosede says, if these people finds visa switch, will they be able to switch with their dependents or bring their dependents from home countries? Well, it depends on when you got your visa. If you got your visa before the 11th of March, when you relocated to UK and you got your visa before the 11th of March, if you switch to another company, you'll be able to switch with your dependents. And if you got the visa after the 11th of March, obviously, if it was after the 11th of March, obviously you can't bring in your dependents. And your switching, it doesn't affect you much because you came after 11th of March and you already know that after 11th of March, you're not able to bring in your dependents from overseas. Someone says, I've got a problem with someone who is pretending to be you. That's Shonichi. Guys, if you look at, there's TikTok, there's Telegram, there is and so forth and so on. There are people who are pretending to be me. There are people who are pretending to be Clara from Clara Immigration. All YouTubers have people who are pretending to be them. Let me tell you something. One, personally, I'll never ask for any cash from you. I'll never say communicate with me privately on Instagram. I only have one email, and the email, or rather 2 emails where you can communicate with me, and those emails can only be found on my YouTube page, on my About section on my YouTube page. On TikTok, when it comes to TikTok, I do not respond to any questions on TikTok. Just know that when it comes to TikTok, I don't respond to any questions on TikTok. So if you're talking to someone on TikTok, it's not me. If you're talking to someone who comes and drops a link here on YouTube and says, get in touch with me on Instagram, get in touch with me on Telegram. Is definitely not me. For those who are purchasing CVs and so forth and so on, like they want a CV or a one-to-one session, I only use one link which I always leave in my description box, nothing else. I never ever ask for any cash from any individual. So send me cash, I secure you a job. I don't secure people jobs. Even if when I'm working with the recruitment agency, I don't say, give me money like this, I'm the ambassador of MMA, I sort out a job for you. I don't do things like that. So all those people that you're seeing out there who are asking you to inbox them, 10, like I saw 10 profiles, 10 different profiles of me with my face, with my name and everything on TikTok. My profile has got, if it's TikTok, my profile has got about over 50,000 is followers, 58,000 followers thereabout. And then Telegram, if ever you want to communicate with me on Telegram, you don't come to my inbox, you always take me in the Telegram group. There's a Telegram group, but I do not operate all those things that you see. It's not me. So you have to be careful, because people are being scammed of their hard-earned cash. So NHS is the only way to go. NHS is the real deal. It's not as easy to get a job in the NHS, but once you get a job in the NHS, you are home and dry. I want to ask about non-clinical jobs. I think I've answered. Someone asked about non-clinical jobs. So guys, this is the update that I wanted to share with you with regards to what is happening here in the United Kingdom. Thank you so much for joining me on this live, and do me a favor, may you kindly like this video. Liking this video is very much free. It's simply liking, pressing the like button, and also sharing the video. You also very much free to also support me as I come and run my mouth, because I really love running my mouth, as I come and run my mouth here on YouTube and share information with you on what is happening on the ground in the United Kingdom. So to round this up, guys, because a lot of people say, oh, I'm not discouraging anyone from coming to the United Kingdom, but it helps you, whatever is happening in the United Kingdom, it helps you to make an informed decision with regards to relocating to overseas. It gives you a clearer picture of what is happening here within the United Kingdom. So when you're applying for jobs, you know this is what is to be expected in the UK. This is what is happening on the ground in the UK. Or if you're coming as an asylum seeker, because not everyone who is coming as a worker here in UK, you know that this is what is happening to asylum seekers within the UK. Or if you're coming as a skilled worker, you also know the plans of the government, that the government has. For example, they want to train their people. So you also know that if I want to come as a skilled worker, let me not waste any of my time. Let me make hay while the sun shines. Let me apply for jobs now before they make any changes. Because trust me, they are going to make changes. Trust me, with each and every week, as each and every week comes, there'll be different updates. Today there's another update. Tomorrow there'll be another update. The previous week there'll be another update. And as we progress, because this is a new government, we might see changes. You know, they've promised that they're not going to keep the skilled workers and so forth, but you know that there's a promise that they want to bring down migration levels to around 350,000 and below. So we don't know how they're going to bring in those measures. So if you've got a clearer picture of what is going on, it's very important. It helps you to make informed decisions. And personally, when I come here, I like sharing with you the reality on the ground. I don't sugarcoat things. Hashtag keeping it real. Otherwise, thank you guys for joining me on this live. I will see you in my next video. I'll answer all your questions which are unanswered after the live. So thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in my next video. Bye.